Have you ever felt the floor vanish beneath you when laughter wasn't with you, but at you? One careless word, one awkward gesture, and suddenly the room shifts. Eyes sharpen, smiles twist. You're no longer human, you're a spectacle. In that instant, many shrink. Some explain. Others force a laugh, hoping the storm will pass. But deep inside, a quiet voice asks, why does their judgment feel heavier than my own worth? Here's the truth I've learned. Humiliation isn't proof of your weakness. It's a confession of theirs. To stand taller, they must cut someone down. To feel powerful, they must turn another into a target. Their first strike already reveals what they fear most, that without the crowd, without the mockery, they are nothing. And this is where the choice begins. You can accept the role they assign, or you can break the script entirely, because shame only has power if you play along. What if, instead, you used that very moment as the seed of your strength? Stay with me, because once you see humiliation differently, you'll never fear it again. Entering the first chapter. Humiliation is never just a passing sting. It feels like a stage execution, where your dignity is dragged into the open and cut down in front of watchful eyes. The facts vanish quickly, but the memory of how small you looked, that lingers. The wound is not in the insult itself, but in the story that follows you home. Now imagine the silence after the laughter fades. The crowd disperses, but the echo remains inside your head. You replay the moment, not because the words were clever, but because they reshaped how others saw you and how you saw yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters." Yet when you stand beneath the glare of public shame, response feels impossible. The room has already decided, or so it seems. Here's the hidden truth. Every humiliation is not just an accident of words. It is a battlefield. The insult is only the opening strike, meant to unbalance you. The deeper attack lies in how the crowd absorbs it, how they adopt a version of you that may not belong to you at all. Power rests in their perception, not in the facts. That's why the Stoics taught us to care less for appearances and more for command of the self. For if you govern your own reaction, you reshape the narrative itself. Consider a court in Machiavelli's time, nobles whispering, alliances fragile. A single story told loud enough could unmake a reputation in an instant. The lesson was clear. Perception rules over truth. You could be brilliant, even noble, and still fall if you failed to master the frame others placed you in. That frame is the unseen weapon. This is where the strike becomes triple. First, they seize the narrative before you even breathe. Second, they capture the spotlight, leaving you fumbling in the shadows. Third, they wait. They want your reaction, rash, defensive, explosive, so they can point and say, "See, that's who they are." The trap closes, not in their insult, but in your desperate attempt to repair yourself in front of others. Most collapse here. They scramble to defend, to explain, to reclaim what's already been surrendered. But Seneca warned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." When you chase every opinion, you abandon your own ground. You no longer lead the story, you trail behind it. The Stoic approach is different. The seasoned mind does not panic. It pauses, it breathes, it refuses to dance to the rhythm set by another. Silence becomes a blade sharper than words. Stillness becomes a stance of unshakable power. Timing turns into strategy. When you refuse to answer in their frame, you force them into the light of their own pettiness. In this arena, the insult is not the true weapon, the frame is. The attacker is not simply trying to wound you, they are trying to redefine you, to etch a permanent caricature into the minds of those watching. If you only see the words, you miss the larger play. The question is not what was said, but how the crowd interprets what comes next. Here's where Machiavelli's cold clarity meets Stoic discipline. The true power in any public conflict does not belong to the aggressor. It belongs to the bystanders, to the witnesses, to the quiet judges who carry the story forward. That means your opponent is not the one hurling the insult. Your real audience is everyone else, and how you stand or stumble in that moment writes the tale that survives. Think of a classroom where one student is mocked. The others don't remember the exact words later. They remember whether the victim crumbled or remained unbent, or picture a workplace meeting where someone takes a cheap shot. The insult fades, but the presence you hold, or lose, echoes long after. Your reaction is not for the aggressor, it is for the room. The average person snaps. They spit back anger, trip over explanations, or withdraw into silence that feels like defeat. But the Stoic, the Machiavellian, sees something sharper. They see the chance to seize the frame itself, to stand calmly, to withhold the easy reaction, to let the aggressor overplay their hand. And by doing so, they turn the stage that was meant for their destruction into the platform for their dominance. This is the essence of reversal, the strength to decide what the moment means. Epictetus reminded us, it's not the events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Humiliation thrives on your judgment, your fear, your panic, your desperate need to prove yourself. Strip that away, and the weapon dulls. The attacker swings at shadows, while you stand unmoved. So what does this look like in real life? It looks like refusing to be rushed into reaction. It looks like meeting sarcasm with stillness, exclusion with quiet confidence, backhanded praise with a steady gaze that makes the speaker stumble on their own words. It looks like turning the crowd's eyes from your weakness to their insecurity. And here is the final cut of truth. In the theater of humiliation, the crowd will not remember the insult. They will remember how you carried yourself when the air turned against you. They will remember if you bent or if you stood. This is the first lesson. The insult is never the real battle. The frame is. And the one who commands their own presence commands the room. From here we step into the deeper question. How do you seize back the frame when all eyes are against you? Moving into the second chapter, step into the scene. A crowded room, voices buzzing, and then one voice cuts sharper than the rest. A mock, a sneer, a cheap attempt to reduce you in front of others. All eyes turn, waiting for the punchline to land, waiting for you to stumble. They're not just watching the insult, they're waiting for your collapse. This is the trap, and this is where most people fall. But here's where the Stoic mind separates itself. Instead of anger, instead of flustered explanations, instead of shrinking into the floor, you choose stillness. Not the stillness of fear, but the stillness of command. Your body remains steady. Your gaze meets theirs, unwavering. No frantic laugh. No desperate defense. Maybe, just maybe, the faint trace of a smirk. An unspoken reminder that you see the game for what it is. And suddenly, the room changes. Why does this silence work? Because people fear what they cannot read. They expect heat, not ice. They expect you to play the victim in their little drama. Instead, you've stepped out of their script entirely, and when you refuse the role they've written for you, their power slips. The laughter they rehearsed begins to falter because it has no stage to stand on. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this. and you will find strength. What greater stage to practice this than in humiliation itself? Your mind is yours to govern. Their words may strike the air, but they cannot command your spirit unless you hand it over. Think of a time you witnessed someone mocked in public. Perhaps it was in school, perhaps at work. One person made a cruel remark. Everyone laughed, but the one being mocked didn't flinch. They sat still, eyes steady, almost amused. Slowly, the laughter died. The crowd grew uneasy, not with the insult, but with the silence that followed it. In that pause, the attacker looked smaller, weaker, desperate for reaction. The tables turned, and no words were needed. That is what stillness does. It seizes the frame. It takes the energy of the moment and bends it back. Seneca said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. In the art of reversal, delay is not weakness. It is a blade. By refusing to react instantly, you shift the weight of the moment from yourself to your attacker. The crowd no longer wonders about your weakness. They wonder about your strength. This isn't about pride. It's about control." The Stoics never taught us to seek applause, but to master ourselves. When you go still, you show mastery. You show that your dignity cannot be snatched by cheap words or shallow jests. And when the attacker realizes you will not play their game, they begin to stumble. For the first time, they're exposed, not you. I recall a story of a young officer mocked before his men. The insult was sharp, designed to make him look foolish. He didn't defend himself, didn't raise his voice. He simply stood, hands behind his back, gaze steady. The silence stretched, heavy, until the one who mocked him grew restless. The crowd shifted, uneasy. Without a word, the officer had already won. The men remembered not the insult, but the unshakable calm that followed. That is the art. Neutralize the stage. Do not let their noise dictate your role. Let your stillness unsettle their certainty. Let your calmness whisper a truth they cannot bear. You are not playing their game. And here lies the paradox. In silence, you speak the loudest. In stillness, you move the room. In calmness, you show strength that cannot be shaken. This is how humiliation begins to die, not with retaliation, not with desperate defense, but with your refusal to bow. You are not the victim of their stage. You are the director of your own presence. And when you command yourself, the crowd cannot help but shift its gaze. At this stage, the lesson becomes clear. Power is not in the insult. Power is in your frame, and once you master stillness, you're ready for the next step, turning that silence into dominance. Advancing to the third chapter. You've already steadied the room with your silence. You've claimed the ground by refusing to dance to their tune. Now comes the sharper move, the reversal. Imagine a blade turning in slow motion, not to slash wildly, but to redirect the weight of the strike back toward the one who swung it. This is where humiliation collapses on itself. Here's where most fall short. When insulted, the instinct is to explain, to justify, to defend. But the moment you defend, you have already stepped into their frame. You've accepted their rules. You've agreed to play the part they cast you in. And no matter how eloquent your defense, you're still trapped on their stage. Marcus Aurelius warned, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Defense is an admission that their estimate matters more than yours. So instead of defending, you reverse, not with anger, not with volume. With one cold, precise line that exposes not you, but them. A line like, "Strange how much effort you needed to say that," or "That's a lot of noise for such little weight." Suddenly, the spotlight turns. You're not arguing facts. You're not begging to be understood. You're revealing the hunger behind their words. And hunger, when seen in daylight, is pitiful. Think of it this way. They struck to make you look small, but you show that the very act of striking reveals their own lack. Their desperation for validation, their need to perform for the crowd, that's what everyone sees now. You've inverted the frame. The subject is no longer your supposed flaw. It's their neediness. Their scramble for power has been exposed as clumsy theatre. I recall a scene in a boardroom where a man tried to belittle a colleague with a sly remark. The room chuckled, waiting for the sting to land, but the colleague didn't defend. He leaned back, smiled faintly, and said, "That tells me more about your day than about my work." The laughter died instantly. Awkward silence filled the room. The attacker shifted in his chair, suddenly aware of how transparent he'd become. Everyone saw it. The reversal was complete. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Delay long enough, and you see the attack not as a knife to your chest, but as a mirror they hold up to themselves. And if you tilt that mirror just right, the room sees it too. Their mockery becomes discomfort. Their performance curdles into shame. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. You're not humiliating them. You're simply refusing to carry what was never yours. You hand it back, untouched, and the weight topples them instead. The Stoics remind us that power lies not in reacting, but in redefining. You decide what the moment means. You decide where the story goes. And here's the paradox. The less you fight for your dignity, the stronger it becomes. The less you scramble to look unhurt, the more untouchable you appear. Because true strength is not about silencing others, it's about making their noise irrelevant. At this stage, the lesson deepens. Silence seizes the stage. Reversal bends the attack back to its source. And once you've mastered that, you're ready for the next ascent, turning every attempted humiliation into the foundation of your quiet dominance. Entering the fourth chapter. There are moments when the dagger of mockery cuts deeper because it touches something real, a failure, a past mistake, a flaw you thought you had hidden, and suddenly the laughter feels heavier because it carries a grain of truth. This is where most people stumble. They deny. They crumble. They try to bury the scar as if it never existed. But here is where the Stoic turns the entire scene on its head. Instead of retreating, you step forward. Instead of denial, you claim it. Calmly, steadily, almost with a shrug. You say, "Yes, that happened." And then you stand there, unshaken. The attack dissolves because you've taken away its only power, the illusion that you are ashamed of your past. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." The same is true of scars. Waste no energy pretending you don't have them. Wear them. They are proof you endured, proof you survived what others may not have faced at all. In that moment, the flaw ceases to define you. It becomes a chapter in your story, not the headline of your life. I remember a man in the marketplace once mocked for a failed venture. His rivals smirked. "Didn't your last shop collapse?" Everyone waited for him to blush, to defend, to retreat. Instead, he said, "Yes, and I learned more from that failure than you have from all your successes combined." The crowd laughed, but not at him. They laughed at the one who tried to wound him and ended up exposed as bitter and insecure. That is the quiet power of owning what was meant to shame you. A scar once revealed is no longer a wound. It cannot be reopened by cheap hands. Seneca said, Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave. Your scars are the evidence of that test. They mark you not as broken, but as proven. And something else happens too. The crowd, who came expecting humiliation, sees courage instead. They see a man or woman who cannot be undone by the past. And in that realization, the tables turn. The one who mocked looks desperate. The one who endured looks untouchable. This is not arrogance, it is liberation. You are free when you no longer need to hide what has already shaped you. You are strong when your story belongs fully to you. The attacker's words, once sharp, now bounce harmlessly off the steel of your acceptance. At this stage, the brutal truth becomes clear. Perfection was never the goal. Control was. Not over the insult, not over the crowd, but over yourself. And once you master that, you carry a presence that no humiliation can stain. From here, the path opens toward an even higher ground, turning scars into signals of strength so visible that even your enemies hesitate before striking. At this stage, most people never grasp the true rule of the crowd. It is not truth they measure, but presence. The audience doesn't tally who was right or wrong. They feel who stood unshaken. And strength in this public theater is not the loud fist or the cutting shout. It is control. It is the weight of stillness, the aura of a figure who carries silence like a weapon. That is the kind of power that makes people pause before they even speak your name. Now imagine this moment. You've been struck with an insult. The crowd stirred, waiting for you to flail or defend. Your instinct screams to fight back, to polish your image, to win their approval. But that's where the average soul breaks. For the Stoic, that's the moment to shift the entire frame. Machiavelli warned never to fight on the ground your enemy chose. The Stoics would add, never hand over your dignity to their noise. You don't prove your value, you make them feel it. And here is the paradox. Looking strong invites another challenger. Looking untouchable ends the challenge before it begins. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be invincible, do not enter into contests in which defeat does not depend upon you." True invincibility is not about crushing others. It is about creating the sense that you cannot be touched at all. It is the story people begin telling themselves about you, and no one dares to test what they believe lies beyond their reach. Picture a meeting where one man tried to mock a colleague. Everyone smirked, expecting a reaction. But instead of flaring up, the target leaned back, voice calm, gaze steady, words measured like a scalpel. Strange how much effort that took for so little weight. He did not shout. He did not argue. He lowered his voice and the room grew quiet. The laughter cracked. What remained was tension and respect. In that silence, the insult died and the attacker looked small. This is how you craft atmosphere. Your body language steady, your tone deliberate, your silence cutting deeper than rage ever could, your words few but edged. You stop trying to repair the image they tried to break. Instead, you shape the air they breathe. You take the energy of defense and turn it into dominance. And soon, the crowd forgets the joke. They remember that you didn't flinch, that you didn't beg, that you stood taller by not needing to prove anything at all. Seneca reminded us, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." These moments are your friction. They reveal the grain of your character. And when you endure them with composure, you emerge brighter, not dulled. The crowd senses it before they can name it. They stop laughing. They begin to wonder, and wonder turns into respect. This is the difference between fleeting victory and enduring power. A temporary win is when you score a clever retort, But lasting power is when the room shifts, when your presence rewrites the very feeling of the scene. You don't have to defeat your enemies in public. You only have to make them look desperate for trying, and that is where humiliation transforms into sovereignty. You are no longer the target. You are the one who turned their stage into your throne. From here, we step into the deeper mastery, how to make that throne unshakable, so even future attacks only strengthen the legend of your composure. Entering the 6th chapter. Humiliation is always a stage. But here's the truth most never see. You are either the actor trapped in someone else's script, or the director who owns the entire scene. Most people surrender to the role written for them, embarrassed, defensive, desperate to save face. But the Stoic, the strategist, the one who has studied both silence and power, refuses to act in another man's play. He takes the stage and rewrites it on the spot. Now imagine this moment. A crowded room, the sting of a cheap insult still hanging in the air, laughter rolling like a wave against you. Every face turned to see how you will squirm. The attacker expects to command not just your reaction, but the atmosphere itself. He assumes the room will laugh when he laughs, mock when he mocks, judge you before you even have a chance to breathe. He builds the scene to trap you in a corner, hoping you'll play your part as the fool. But here's the mistake. He is counting on your obedience. He assumes you'll follow his script. And this is where the Stoic breaks the illusion. You don't scramble to explain. You don't throw another insult back across the fire. That's what they expect. That's the game they rehearsed. Instead, you do the one thing that shakes a crowd to its core. You go still, completely still. Picture it clearly, the laughter echoing, yet you remain unmoved. Not a twitch, not a flinch. Just the calm weight of someone who knows they cannot be shaken. Slowly, you lift your eyes, and, with a gaze steady as iron, you meet theirs. Perhaps the faintest smirk touches your lips. Not mockery, not anger, but the quiet amusement of someone who sees deeper than the surface. You are no longer reacting to the attacker. You are speaking directly to the room without a single word. And something remarkable begins to happen. The laughter falters. Eyes flick nervously between you and the attacker. The air thickens with a question unspoken but felt by all. Did we just laugh too soon? Suspense replaces mockery. Doubt creeps into the crowd. Suddenly, no one is sure who truly looks foolish anymore. Seneca wrote, "He who laughs at another's misfortune is a fool himself." In that silence, the crowd senses the truth. The insult is not about you, it's about the hunger of the one who delivered it. Their need for attention, their desperate grasp for control, and as you stand in unflinching stillness, the balance shifts. They no longer look like the victor. They look like a performer begging for validation. I once saw this happen in a gathering. A man was mocked loudly for a failure in his past. The room erupted in laughter. But the one targeted did not argue. He didn't defend. He simply looked up, calm as stone, and let the silence stretch. Within moments, the laughter felt wrong. The attacker's voice cracked, trying to push harder, but it was too late. Everyone could feel it. The man standing in silence had already won. This is how humiliation is transformed. Not with noise, not with frantic rebuttal, but with presence. The Stoic doesn't chase the crowd's approval. He makes the crowd question its own reaction. He doesn't need to shout to reclaim the stage. He lets silence do the work. And in that silence, power changes hands. Remember this. People do not follow the loudest person in the room. They follow the one least affected by the noise. Marcus Aurelius taught us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. By refusing to flail, by refusing to become what they want you to be, you make yourself untouchable. And here's where your throne is built. Not in words, but in the feeling you leave behind. The crowd won't recall the insult tomorrow. They'll remember how you stood. They'll remember that in a moment designed to break you, you looked unbreakable. That is the story that spreads. That is the legend they whisper. If you felt the weight of these words, stay with me. Subscribe so you never miss the next lesson in this silent art. And in the comments, write one word, unmoved, because that is the stance you carry from this moment forward. From here, we rise into the next lesson. How to make every attempted humiliation not just powerless, but fuel for your lasting dominance. Moving into the 7th chapter. The strategy we're tracing now isn't some modern trick. It's ancient, older than the courts of Florence, older than the whispers of Machiavelli, older even than the vocabulary we've given it. Long before the Renaissance sharpened human cunning into daggers of influence, the Stoics had already mapped this ground. They warned of perception, they warned of ego. They taught that silence, presence, and control were weapons far sharper than any sword. Marcus Aurelius, writing alone at night, left us these words: "If anyone can refute me, show me I am mistaken or looking at things wrongly, I will gladly change. For it is the truth I seek, and the truth never harmed anyone." Notice what he did not say. He did not urge us to guard our pride. He did not tell us to prove ourselves to the crowd. He sought truth, not applause. Yet Aurelius, emperor though he was, walked a different arena than the ones Machiavelli later studied. Marcus believed in truth as its own defense. Machiavelli, hardened by betrayal and fragile alliances, knew that truth alone is rarely enough. Because the crowd does not follow truth, they follow the frame. This is why humiliation bites so deeply. It's not about facts, it's about atmosphere. The one who humiliates you is trying to seize the invisible crown of leadership, if only for a heartbeat. They want the room to orbit them. They want the moment to belong to their story. But as Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. This is not merely about battlefields. It is about perception in every human gathering. When insulted, you stand at a fork in the road. Your silence can be read as weakness or as mystery. Which one it becomes depends not on their words, but on your presence. Control the timing. Control the stillness. Control the way the pause hangs heavy. And suddenly, that same silence becomes unshakable power. Machiavelli absorbed these Stoic and Eastern whispers and hardened them into practice. He watched the games of courts, where rivals traded venom behind goblets of wine. He watched how one smirk could tilt alliances, how one raised eyebrow could outshine a speech. He saw a truth as old as man. People do not remember who was correct. They remember who looked untouchable. Think of this carefully. In every room, in every debate, in every moment of public tension, there is always a silent question that hangs like smoke. Who is leading this moment? Not in title, not in formal rank, but in energy. The one who controls the meaning of the moment becomes the one the crowd instinctively follows. And when someone tries to humiliate you, that is what they are reaching for. Leadership of the moment. They want to steal it. But they assume you will resist, that you will claw back, that you will rage or explain. And in your resistance, they cement their frame. The Stoic, however, knows better. He practices judo, not wrestling. He lets the insult fly past, using its force to topple the attacker. Picture it now. Someone sneers. You really love hearing yourself talk, don't you? The common man reacts immediately. No, I was only trying to. Or worse, fires back with equal venom. At least I have something worth saying. Both are snares. Both prove neediness. The disciplined mind does something colder. He tilts his head slightly, waits just a beat longer than comfort allows, and says softly, "Interesting how much that bothered you." And just like that, the spotlight shifts. The room is no longer thinking about whether you spoke too long. They are thinking about why your accuser cared so much. The frame flips. The attack reveals its hunger. The one who seemed powerful a moment ago now looks insecure, reaching for validation in front of witnesses. This is psychological judo. You do not block the force, you redirect it. And you do it with calmness that borders on indifference. Your words land less like a counterattack and more like an observation, curious, detached, surgical. This terrifies people far more than rage. For rage shows they touched your wound. But calm makes them question what you know that they don't. Your stillness unsettles them, because it suggests that your strength runs far deeper than the surface. I remember a debate where a young leader was mocked openly by his rival. The audience laughed. The young man did not. He looked at his rival, waited and said, "That's a lot of effort just to try to stand taller." Silence fell. The crowd shifted. Everyone suddenly saw the mockery not as wit, but as desperation. The attacker collapsed under the weight of his own attempt. The room was won without a fight. Epictetus taught, "When someone is provoking you, remember, it is not the person who reviles you or strikes you that insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting. This is the essence." The insult has no teeth until you give it your reaction. Strip that away, and their blade cuts air. Most people misunderstand humiliation. They think the crowd cares about logic, or about whose comeback was sharper, or about who scored the final word. But the truth is colder. The crowd forgets the words. They remember the presence. Presence is the true currency. You could say nothing at all and still command victory if your silence is weighted with composure. Or you could deliver the perfect phrase, but if your voice quivers, if your shoulders sag, if your eyes dart in fear, you lose before the words finish leaving your lips. That is why cleverness is never enough. The real weapon is energy. The way you stand when the world watches. The way you breathe when all expect you to break. It is your stillness in the storm. It is the refusal to scramble for approval. That is what shapes the story. Think of the great figures you've seen. Generals who spoke little yet commanded entire armies. CEOs who sat in silence while others fumbled over words. A mentor in your life who, when insulted, smiled faintly instead of lashing out. What made them unforgettable was never volume. It was the weight of their calm. This is what you must learn to cultivate. In humiliation, do not rush to repair the insult. Do not try to repaint your image frantically. Repair your posture. Repair your silence. Repair your composure. Let the room adjust to you, not the other way around. Pause. Let silence breathe. Wait longer than comfort allows. Then, if you must speak, lower your tone. Slow your pace. Say less than what is expected. Every second you hold your ground in calmness, the balance tilts further in your favor, because when others feel the imbalance, they search instinctively for someone to steady it, and that person becomes you. This is the secret of timeless dominance, not outwitting in words, not overpowering in noise, but making both your opponent and the crowd feel unmistakably that you cannot be moved, that no insult defines you, that no laughter pierces you, and once they sense that, the details fade. They forget the insult, the words, the laughter. What remains, etched in their memory, is a single image. You standing unbroken when it mattered most. That is how humiliation dies. Not because you crushed it with rage, but because you outlasted it with presence. And presence once felt is never forgotten. From here, the 8th chapter unfolds. Every public insult arrives with a hidden script. The one who throws it has already rehearsed, maybe not with words, but in imagination. They've played the scene in their minds before. They pictured the audience chuckling on cue. They pictured your face flushing, your voice cracking, your attempt to patch the wound while everyone watched. They expected you to step willingly into the mask they prepared for you, the fool. But here's the Stoic insight sharpened by Machiavelli's realism. Humiliation only works if you play your assigned role, refuse the role, and their entire plan collapses. So how do you refuse? Not by shouting back, not by explaining yourself. You break the script by creating suspense. The kind of silence that lingers too long. The kind of pause that bends the room. A smirk where they expected shame. Stillness where they anticipated collapse. Suddenly, their carefully staged performance is derailed. Picture the scene. Someone leans back and sneers, "Don't worry, you'll figure it out someday." The crowd chuckles, waiting for your reaction. Most would rush to defend, or mutter something self-deprecating, or lash out in anger, but not you. You wait. You tilt your head just slightly, as if examining a curious object. And then, with a tone as calm as it is cutting, you say, "That one sounded rehearsed. Been saving it, haven't you?" In an instant, the air changes. The audience feels it before they think it. What once looked like wit now looks like obsession. What seemed like a quick tongue now smells of something staged, desperate, contrived, and the crowd recoils from it. Their laughter dries in their throats. The moment of entertainment turns to unease. Seneca once observed, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." The same principle holds here. If you flinch, if you defend, you suffer twice, once from the insult and again from playing into their script. But when you expose the performance for what it is, you suffer nothing. The insult turns hollow. It becomes their embarrassment, not yours. This is the quiet art of stripping the mask from your attacker. You reveal their words not as clever, but as crafted. Not as powerful, but as needy. The crowd does not like to feel manipulated. Once they sense the insult was staged, they recoil from the insulter. What was meant to elevate them now brands them as petty. I recall a dinner table where a man launched into a joke at another's expense, clearly rehearsed. The target did not rush to respond. He leaned back, let the laughter crest, then said evenly, "You've told that one before. I can tell you've been waiting for the right moment." Silence. The laughter died, and suddenly it was the joker who looked small, exposed for the time he'd spent sharpening his little barb. The power he thought he held was gone. This is the essence of breaking the script. You don't wrestle the insult head-on. You expose its preparation, its neediness, its lack of authenticity. You make the crowd see what was always there, a performance, not strength. And when they see it, the spell is broken. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them knows anything about the subject." Apply this here. The crowd's laughter, their initial reaction, means nothing if you stand firm, because truth is not in their noise, It's in the presence you hold, and here lies the paradox. The strongest in the room is rarely the one who strikes first. It is the one whose composure rewrites the entire story others thought they were watching. Not by volume, not by anger, but by turning the attack into a mirror that reflects only the attacker's insecurity. In humiliation, presence is the throne, stillness is the crown, and breaking the script is the act that turns ridicule into reverence. At this stage, the lesson becomes clear. Their power was never in the insult. It was always in the script. And once you tear the script apart, the scene no longer belongs to them. It belongs to you. Entering the 9th chapter. Not every wound arrives as words. Some of the deepest cuts are made without a sound. Sometimes the attack is not a jab or a jest, but an emptiness. You are ignored in the conversation, your ideas brushed aside, your presence treated as invisible. It feels colder than mockery because there is nothing to grasp, nothing to answer, no blade to block, only absence, and absence can sting more than insult. Now imagine yourself in that space. A group leans in together, voices overlapping, while your contribution dissolves as if you were never there. Or worse, someone interrupts before you finish, and the current of the room flows past you like water around a stone. Many crumble here. They try to push back into the stream, desperate to be seen, desperate to belong. But desperation is exactly what your adversary wants. Machiavelli would say, never chase inclusion, for chasing is begging, and begging places you beneath those you seek approval from. The moment you argue for your place, you accept the frame of exile. You brand yourself the outsider, pleading to be let in, and nothing weakens a person faster than the smell of desperation. So instead, you reverse, not in anger, not in sulking retreat, but with the calm precision of strategy. You disengage, not from the room, but from the game they want you to play. You withdraw your attention, your presence, your energy. These are currencies, and you stop spending them where they yield no return. Picture this clearly. They ignore you. Fine. You lean back, posture open, expression light. You turn your gaze to someone else, perhaps starting a quiet exchange at the edge of the group. Or you shift your focus elsewhere, a note, your phone, even the subtle gesture of a small smile that says, "This does not define me." You are not reacting with injury. You are declaring without words that their dismissal has no hold over your value. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It is not what others say or do that harms us, but our response to it. Our response is our choice. When you choose disengagement, you take away the attacker's fuel. Their attempt at humiliation collapses into emptiness, because humiliation requires your cooperation. Without it, they are only speaking into a void. And here is the reversal. When you remove your attention, you create gravity elsewhere. Attention, like water, always seeks a new path. Perhaps you begin speaking with someone across the room. Perhaps you shift the tone with a story, drawing laughter in a different corner. Energy follows where attention flows. And soon, the crowd that ignored you finds their focus tilting toward your orbit. Not because you begged for it, but because you no longer needed it. I recall a gathering where a man was subtly excluded. Each time he spoke, others cut across him. He didn't argue. He didn't force his voice louder. Instead, he turned, struck a conversation with two people on the edge. Within minutes, the energy shifted. The laughter, the attention, the liveliness, it all gathered around him, and the ones who had excluded him were left staring across the table, silent, irrelevant. He had not fought for inclusion. He had made himself the center by ceasing to care. Seneca reminded us, "He who does not need riches resembles the gods." The same can be said of validation. He who does not need inclusion becomes untouchable. When you no longer seek permission to belong, you carry a presence that cannot be denied, and those who tried to exile you find themselves stranded, their power dissolved. Understand this: attention is the purest form of power in any room, and the cruelest way to take power from someone who thrives on humiliation is to starve them of it. You stop feeding them your eyes, your words, your energy. You let their performance echo unanswered. The silence does not wound you, it wounds them. Think of the attacker then. They raise their voice, trying to sting you, but you are elsewhere. They dismiss you, but you have already shifted the current. Their mockery falls flat because the audience has drifted toward your calm. They are left performing for shadows, and there is nothing more humiliating than an insult that no one values enough to notice. This is not retreat. It is repositioning. You are not leaving the battlefield. You are choosing a higher ground. You are saying, "I do not fight for scraps of attention. I create my own stage." And slowly, without resistance, the balance of power tips. At this stage, the Stoic lesson stands clear. You do not need to shout to reclaim your dignity. You do not need to demand acknowledgement. You only need to master your own energy. Withdraw it from where it is wasted, redirect it where it grows, and watch as the room rearranges itself around your stillness. For in the end, humiliation cannot survive without your consent. The moment you refuse to play the role of the outsider, their script burns to ash. They lose not only your attention, but the crowd's. And while they fade into irrelevance, you rise, calm, deliberate, untouchable. That is how silence becomes strength and how absence turns into dominance. And from here, we step into the final mastery, transforming not just moments of humiliation, but your entire presence into a force no one dares to challenge. Advancing to the 10th chapter. Sometimes the sharpest strike is no strike at all. Sometimes the most devastating move is stillness. You let the storm howl and you stand unmoved. Because those who humiliate others are often not strong, they are hungry. Hungry for laughter, hungry for the fleeting drug of superiority. And like all hunger, it consumes them more than it ever touches you. Now imagine this. The insult comes, sharp and loud. The room reacts. All eyes turn toward you. You remain calm. No defense, no fight, just presence. The attacker shifts, uneasy. They expected fire and found stone, so they strike again, louder, harsher, grasping for control. Still, you do not bend. You don't feed the fire. You let it burn itself out. And something begins to happen. The crowd, once amused, grows restless. What felt clever begins to look desperate. What was laughter turns to silence. Their repeated blows no longer look like strength. They look like obsession. The attacker is no longer the victor. They are the performer who doesn't know when to leave the stage. Machiavelli would call this giving them rope. Let them climb their own ladder of arrogance until the height itself betrays them. You do not need to push. Their ego will do the work. Seneca reminded us, "He who is greedy is always in want." The one addicted to humiliation is always thirsty for reaction. Deny them, and their thirst exposes them. Picture a man at a gathering. He mocks his colleague once, twice, 3 times. Each time he grows bolder, thinking he owns the moment. But the target remains composed, silent, unshaken. Soon the laughter fades. People exchange uneasy glances. The aggressor, blinded by his need to dominate, keeps digging. Finally, after the room has soured, the calm one looks up and says, almost gently, "You seem really committed to this performance." It lands heavier than any shout could, a cold knife wrapped in silk. No escalation, no anger, just clarity. And the silence that follows weighs on everyone, because in that moment the entire room sees the truth. The one who seemed strong was enslaved to their own need for validation. The one who stayed silent was free. This is the essence of psychological elevation. You rise not by clawing upward, but by letting the other fall under the weight of themselves. You do not drag them down, you let them unravel. And when they collapse, the crowd no longer remembers the words. They remember who stood still while another destroyed themselves. Epictetus taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit. When you refuse complicity, when you deny them the satisfaction of your reaction, you rob them of their stage. Their performance becomes a spectacle of weakness, not of strength, and you emerge untouched because you never entered the contest at all. The brilliance of this approach is that it requires nothing external. No clever retorts, no elaborate strategies, only mastery of self, to stay calm when provoked, to let silence speak longer than their words can last, to wait. And waiting is the hardest form of courage. But here is the gift it leaves behind. The crowd will forget the insult. They will forget the noise. What lingers is the memory of composure. They will remember that you did not flinch, that you did not scramble, that you stood taller by standing still. And in their minds, the crown of control belongs to you. At this stage, the lesson sharpens. Humiliation is fleeting. Self-control is timeless. One lives only for the moment. The other leaves a legacy. And sometimes the greatest revenge is never stepping onto the battlefield, because when you never swing, you can never be defeated. You simply stand and let time reveal the truth. Entering the 11th chapter. The greatest mistake people make is thinking humiliation is nothing more than an awkward moment to brush off later. But those who understand power know better. They know humiliation is not just a sting in the present. It is an attempt to rewrite your identity in front of others. It is a contest not over words, but over narrative. Now imagine it. Someone insults you in a crowded room. They are not aiming at your feelings. They are aiming at how others perceive you. In a classroom, in a boardroom, even in the hidden theater of digital space, perception shapes reality. If the crowd accepts their version of you, that version becomes the truth people carry forward. Suddenly, you are not who you are. You are who they say you are. And unless you act, that label sticks. This is what Machiavelli would call identity warfare. A single insult becomes a seed of a story. Let it grow unchecked, and it takes root. You shrug it off with forced laughter, and you appear complicit. Defend it, and you make it real. Every time you allow someone else to frame you, you strengthen their script, and repetition turns performance into belief. The Stoics warned of this long before Machiavelli sharpened it into strategy. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be a writer, write." In the same way, if you wish to be the author of your life, you must hold the pen. If you do not, your enemies will write your story for you. So how do you respond? Not with explanations, not with volume, not with begging the crowd to like you. You break their frame. You refuse the role. When they paint you weak, you stand unmoved. When they seek to make you needy, you show indifference. When they cast you as arrogant, you answer with calm curiosity. Every move is designed not to defend your ego, but to redefine the scene. And once the frame shatters, their power collapses. For in truth, no one can humiliate you unless you accept the mask they hand you. The moment you refuse to wear it, you take back the stage they built for your destruction and make it your platform for dominance. The question is never, did they insult me? The real question is who decides what the insult means. If you decide, you win. If they decide, you lose. Now let's break this battlefield into tactics, because theory without practice is useless. When all eyes are on you, you will not have time for philosophy. You will need instinct. The first law is disruption. When someone insults you, they expect a rhythm, shock, fluster, defense. Your job is to break that rhythm. Pause. Let silence stretch just beyond comfort. Take a deliberate sip of water. Adjust your chair. Tilt your head slightly as if you are studying a curious insect. These small actions throw the entire script into disarray. The crowd expected fire. You give them suspense. And suspense is power. Once you have stolen the air, you speak, but not to defend. That is what the untrained do. You speak to expose. They ask, did you really think that speech was impressive? The average man explains, denies, or jokes. But the Machiavellian mind answers, strange how much attention you're giving me for something you claim not to value. Instantly the frame shifts. The insult is no longer about your speech. It is about their obsession. They are revealed as the one who cannot let go, the one reaching too hard. This is where most people fail. They think proving themselves saves them. But social power has never been about truth. It has always been about the frame. Control the frame, and the facts bow to you. A master says calmly, that's one way to see it. But the fact that you needed to say it says more than the words themselves. Detached, cold, beyond the petty duel. The room feels it, and suddenly the attacker looks smaller, as if shouting from the floor to reach you. Here lies the secret. Calm, surgical clarity beats frantic defense every single time. The crowd will not remember the logic. They will remember the poise. They will remember that you did not need to fight to remain standing. And yet there is one more trap. After you reverse the moment, after you turn silence into respect, you will feel the temptation to bask, to wait for the applause, to collect the credit. But that is where most squander their victory. Power is not in the cheer. Power is in the echo. Machiavelli warned, when the room is finally quiet, leave. Do not linger to enjoy your triumph. That is what small minds crave. They want recognition. They want the crowd's approval. But the one who waits for applause reduces himself to a performer. And performers can always be mocked again. If you wish to leave a mark, walk away with dignity. Shift the subject. Exit the moment without signaling you needed the win. Because the memory that lasts is not your victory dance. It is your refusal to need one. The silence after you depart speaks louder than cheers ever could. Think of the great figures in history, not the loudest, but the stillest. They did not scramble for the last word. They did not explain themselves into exhaustion. They ended the moment cleanly and let the world adjust. The absence they left behind was heavier than their presence in the room. This is the Machiavellian elevation. It is not about ego. It is not about being crowned by the crowd. It is about carrying yourself in such a way that people remember not how much you tried to win, but how little you needed to. In the end, dignity is the sharpest blade. It cuts through noise, it outlasts rumor, and it leaves behind the one image no insult can erase. You, unshaken, walking away while they are still struggling to understand how they lost. Entering the 12th chapter. Here's a truth few want to admit. When you reverse humiliation once, it doesn't end the war. It begins a longer game. The moment you stand unbreakable, you become dangerous. And danger always draws envy. They will return, quieter, sharper, more subtle. Now, imagine this. The insult doesn't arrive with noise. It slides in wrapped as a compliment. You're actually smart when you try. Or it hides inside a question meant to corner you. Why do you always have to be the smartest in the room? Sometimes it doesn't come at all, only silence, a cold exclusion designed to erase you from the circle. These are traps, and most stumble into them, reacting with irritation, defense, or anxiety. But the Stoic holds steady. He doesn't scramble to fix. He doesn't argue. He redirects. To the backhanded compliment, he replies calmly. Interesting how much effort that took to phrase. Now it's no longer about his intelligence. It's about their need to undermine. To the loaded question, he answers with a pause. Is that what you're seeing? The frame flips. Suddenly their perception, not his character, is under scrutiny, and when excluded, he doesn't beg. He shifts his energy elsewhere, creating gravity in another corner until the room itself tilts back toward him. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That is the essence. You cannot stop the attack, but you can master its meaning. Humiliation isn't in the insult. It lives in the story that follows. Write it yourself, or they will. And here's the deeper mastery. You do not win because you crave revenge or applause. You win because you crave nothing. No pity, no recognition, not even being right. What you hold instead is command over yourself. And through that, you command the room. Power doesn't scramble to fix every jab. It stands still. It waits. It lets the insecure overplay their hand. And they always will, because those addicted to testing the strong cannot resist trying again. When the storm rises, remain steady like a stone in the river, unshaken while the waters break around you. The insult fades, the attacker shrinks. And what remains etched in memory is the sight of you, still standing when others expected you to fall. That is how humiliation dies. Not because the words vanish, but because they no longer matter. In the end, you may not control who tries to shame you, but you always decide what meaning the moment will carry. No insult defines you, no rival can truly break you, and no failure can hold you down if you choose to rise. If this message brought you strength, consider subscribing to stay on the path of inner power. Comment unmoved to affirm your stance. Walk forward with calm dignity, knowing the next challenge will only sharpen you further.